GM, BM, Hello, and Ooga Booga. Welcome, everyone. Sorry for the delay. We're starting a bit late, but we will cover everything. Today, Jenny is with me again. It's our second part of the Mibera podcast. So, for those of you who didn't watch the first part, you can find it on my YouTube channel or on Twitter. In the second part today, we will talk about Mibera and its technical details. First of all, I want to chit chat with Jenny. How is him going? Last time we spoke about Mibera, and we all thought that on the 20th will be the mint, so it got delayed the day other. So can you maybe touch on that a bit? And how are you? Did you get any sleep?
If first up, my brain is working quite slower than normal. I've got COVID at the moment. I'm pretty like I've got some number of viruses, and I'm running on very little sleep. Ideally, you'd log off. You would give your brain a rest, but that's not possible right at this moment in time. So there's probably, if I'm making mistakes, go gently on me. You know what I mean? Essentially, treat everything I'm saying as inaccurate, but as a starting point for you to do your own research. You know what I mean? But I'm going good. Otherwise,
we will never know if you make a mistake. That's
you should. You should look into everything. Right up at the top. So that experience that you had of waiting at the end of the phone line, trying to figure out when it's happening, is a shared cultural moment. It's a part of the Mibera law now. Those of you who are locked in, dialed in, losing sleep, sweating a bit, this will be a story when you meet up at some point in the future. You'll be like, were you there for that time, that experience, and this thing? Many of the best experiences and stories that I have from free party culture isn't actually from the raves themselves. It's from the surrounding excitement and adventure of actually trying to get to them, figuring out who your crew is. Sometimes, because it was always a game of cat and mouse, right? It wouldn't just be a broadcast to fellow ravers. It would also be a broadcast to the feds, who it's like they would be trying to figure out, okay, where is the spot? And we need to get there and shut it down before people arrive. And it got to such a point in the movement that essentially you would have people at the ready in their cars, kind of in, let's say, surrounding fields or parts of the country. And you'd have people at the end of phone boxes, at the end of a country lane with no fucking light. There's a cow in a field. And you'd be waiting for someone to say, okay, this is the location. And then you'd be driving down the motorway or laneways, and it'd be convoys of cars, right? And if your convoy beat the cops to the location, then the party was on. If you were slow and the cops got there first, seized the equipment, destroyed the speakers or whatever, then it was off and you need to go to the next time. So this, is a tiny, tiny taste of some of the feeling from back then, but really, a lot of what we're trying to do with this thing is to convey, like, underneath the tech, underneath the markets, underneath the internet, underneath your devices, we're people on some type of collective kind of mission. Each of it might be individual in some sense, but we can still tap into this. It's there. The number of people messaging Janny, sharing stories from their rave days is in the hundreds. At some point, it will pass the thousands. And then at the other end of the spectrum is a whole bunch of people who weren't there for Silk Road, or they weren't there for the rave, but they've read about it. And so I've got at the barbell other end of the spectrum, a lot of people pouring their heart out in DMs saying, I'm really feeling something. And I think in the macro that we have in the markets, it's been a tough market. That's really what we were going for. So if this is your first rug with Janny, sorry for your loss, but welcome to the club. Of course, if you look at the center of the Bareface logo is the number 23, right? 23 has a long tradition in numerology, and it's a prime number, and it's long been a number which is called out to different people. One of the founders of Spiral Tribe, which is where that logo comes from, we've adapted it Tez from the Honeycast kind of tweaked the spiral logo, the spiral tribe logo, and added bear ears, but the center of the face remains unchanged. And that's because Mark from Spiral Tribe, he was kind of the person who originated the name Spiral Tribe. He was very interested in kind of early graphics, computer photocopiers and stuff like this. And the spiral really spoke to him. And then the other aspect was 23. So if you look in the center of that logo, there's a 2 and a 3. So the date was always the 23rd. We just wanted to bring you on a bit of an adventure. To do something kind of unusual for Janny, let's speak very clearly right now. So here are the details for the mint. Phase 1 will start at 2200, so that's 2200 UTC on the 23rd, and it's going to remain open for 24 hours.
UTC, okay.
Yeah. So once that, so you'll have 24 hours if you're in phase 1 to deposit your funds. So, you know, wherever you are in the world, you should be able to sleep and then come on. And as long as you put in your calendar sometime within that 24 hour, remember phase 1 is 1-to-1. There's no over allocation in phase 1 at all. So if you have those spots, then you can mint those. You're not obliged to. If you've, for example, got one person has managed to be so deep in the reads in Mibera, there's one person who managed to get 8. If that person only wants to mint 1 or 0, they can. But if they want to mint up to 8, they can. Most people, the average is around 2, let's say, or the median. The phase 2 begins at 2200, so 2200 UTC, Monday the 24th, so 24 hours later. And it remains open for 24 hours. Now, this one's a bit different than phase 1. In phase 1, it's 1-to-1. In phase 2, there's about 20% overall over allocation. So that means if everyone who turns up to mint wants to, then it will trigger at the end of that 24-hour period, it will trigger a raffle. And so randomly, the number of spots that are available in phase 2 will be distributed amongst people randomly. So in this way, it's our response to, in a lot of mints, it really, the people who have the advantage are maybe those in the better time zone, those with better computing equipment, those with a faster internet connection, and sophisticated actors who can run scripts or bots or this type of thing, or people who are using their services. So the way that we really listened to people in this process, and there's the use of bots is no problem, but I think the setting up mints in a way where the only players are those with sophisticated, expensive equipment, with fast internet, or those who can afford to pay them, is a bit of an uneven, inequitable dynamic. And so there is no benefit to when you put the funds in to phase 2. You could be first or you could be last, but that will be equal in the raffle. And if you've minted in phase 1, you won't be able to mint in phase 2. So we're going for wider distribution. And within phase 2, it's 1 mint per unique wallet. So we're going for distribution in that point. Phase 2 will also inherit any surplus supply from phase 1 that didn't get minted. So it may be the case that it's not over allocated. It depends on how many people exercise their option to mint in phase 1. So that's why we can't give exact figures. And then on Tuesday, the 25th, phase 3 will open at, you guessed it, 2200 UTC. And that will be open for 24 hours. And that one is open to Milady motherfuckers or MFers. We'll explain why as part of this technical technical design. It's open to THC holders, and it's open to honeycomb holders. Now, if you're holding one of those collections and you don't show up in phase 3, it's because we've run pretty rigorous anti-Sybil algos over all of those holder sets. It's 1 per unique person. And if there are honeycombs or THC or Milady MFers that we feel are just someone trying to increase the number of spots, then we've removed them from remove them. If you feel that we've gone too aggressive, like Sarah Connor in Terminator, then do reach out to Janny. I'm happy to review person by person. I've done thousands by this point, but like just be honest, because I'm the Janopticon. We see, like, you can't pull the wool over our eyes. So it's just better to be transparent and honest. Like, if fair game, if you tried it and it didn't work, just chalk it up. But yeah, that's quite a different. It's not quite on brand for Janny to be that just super clear. You're getting the breaking news after this. I'll write up a thread and post about it. But any questions off the back of that?
For me, not. I like that, because always these bots, these are very annoying. So I like this second phase and 24-hour window. I think it's perfect, well executed, well thought,
Yeah,
thought out.
I don't know if anyone's done it quite like this before, but it's a system that we have designed in dialogue with not just the bears, but the wider NFT sector. I think that would be a third part to this series, wouldn't be Mibera specific, but would be the experience of the bearer NFT world meeting let's say, the established wider NFT world, because that's really only happened since, let's say, November. But really, and I've ruffled some feathers, I've thrown a few punches, I've done some friendly fire, I've gone and apologized to people. Other people, I think it was righteous and deserved, but the outcome from that process is this different approach. And again, it's a pre-mint, so it's a bit influenced by the way that we did the supersets. It's a bit influenced by the pre deposits that was Boyko. And of course, the open general mint, if not all of the supply is kind of pre-minted, then on the 20th of April, 420, we will open the mint on Magic Eden with any remaining supply. I've spoken with the team, and to correct something that I spoke with you about, if 100% of the supply mints out, then perhaps we'll open trading earlier, because then there's not really that much. Nice. There's not that much worthwhile waiting for. All the tech, all the art, everything is ready. We've been ready for a long time. So maybe we don't need to wait till 420. Maybe instead 420 would be the date that we start revealing the traits. We've got a very interesting experience around that. You will have seen, if you go to Janny's timeline and you look at media, you'll see these parcels. So each person who has a Mibera is actually going to receive their Mibera inside a parcel to begin with. So there'll be 10,000 generated parcels, each of them unique, that you'll first receive. And then at a certain point, then the reveal process starts. There's, of course, many layers and depths to the rarity, traits, aesthetic, cultural heritage, all of this. So there are different, let's say, ways of playing Mibera, in the sense that if you're a trait hunter and you're looking for grails or looking for super rare ones, you can play that game. If you're looking for a particular rarity in a particular, let's say, archetype, you can play that game. If you're going by pure aesthetic, the look of it, how it feels, you can play that game. So there's a lot of different. We're interested to see how people receive it.
So you can choose it. So you have a decision to make.
No, well, fuck it. I like leaking to you. I like you. I think, like, you're a really good interviewer. You are this ambassador, envoy archetype. You engage deeply in multiple different communities, and I think that's really, honestly, very rare. So I don't mind you being the person who breaks the news. So, of course, the number 7, the meme math.
Sorry for
the meme math is an important part. So there's a seven phased reveal, and so after the parcel,
Wow.
you will initially get the base Mibera, and then it will go through 7 stages of reveal. We haven't decided the cadence. Maybe there's a reveal each Tuesday and Thursday, so it will happen over the course of 6 weeks. Maybe it will happen
Oh, I
over
love
8
that.
days. We haven't decided the cadence. But basically, as each layer of the Mibera reveals, of course, you can then make a bet. Shit, I've got a really rare one here. But maybe you just have a rare background, but all the rest is plain. So maybe a trader would be like, fuck it, I'm going to book in a grail background here. Maybe I'll get a premium on the market. So there's a lot of different games that people can play. The true collectors can wait for inevitable dumps, this type of thing. I would say, though, be careful. We've got, I don't want to blow up people's spots, but let's just say there are a lot of people on the sidelines. And let's just say Janny is not the only Janny. I'll put it that way. I don't want to blow people's spots up. But yeah, so that's some of what's coming down the pipeline. Let me quickly, I hadn't expected to leak this because it's not quite in the technical realm, but fuck it, why not?
Sorry, you started it, so I only wanted to ask. Didn't know
No,
it's
it's
hidden.
from this. Yeah, it's okay. Let's if I can find it in 30 seconds. One of my superpowers, I think it's not even a superpower, but just being able to search for information, memes, images quickly.
I saw that today.
Cool. I think this is it.
You mentioned meme math. I have a story to that.
Please do, whilst I look for this.
I usually do not trade, so I'm not the trader guy. I don't draw the charts and do nothing like that. And what I noticed that every time I trade, I often lose. So if I trade Bitcoin or Ether, I most likely will lose. But every time I trade Bera, I win. So last time I had to decide, will I trade again Bitcoin it was before the FOMC meeting on Wednesday, or I will take a long on Bera, and it was on 6.069, and I took a long, and now it's trading around 6.69. So I'm considering closing this trade, not because I'm not believing in Bera, but because it was only a short time opportunity.
Sometimes it's good to book a profit, you know.
Yeah. So meme math is everywhere around us, and maybe this is a sign I should take profits now.
I genuinely believe, you know, there's no denying that there's some complexity in the universe. Its origins we can argue about, but maths is also a feature of the universe. And I think for those kind of looking out for little patterns and this type of thing, if nothing else, it's kind of humorous to observe. I don't know. I've got a 1x long with a pretty fat stack open on IVX. I don't generally play perps, but just the APY. I'm like over the course of a year going to double my stack for pretty much like minimal risk. You know, not financial advice, all of that other shit. Jenny's not a trader. That's not my game. I create and then kind of book profits from the value that's created from invention, from thin air. Trading this type of stuff is not so much my bag. I just sent you. I sent you on Twitter the reveal doc. Do you want to see if you can open that up?
Yes.
And we can share it and then talk it through.
I hope it's not a virus.
This is it's all right. It's a link. It's a Google link.
Getting wrecked live here.
Yeah.
No.
Can you open it?
So I can share. Yeah, of course.
Cool.
We'll show
So
it.
I hadn't this, this is cultural, but also it touches on the technical in the sense that, in-house we can do everything, not just the art. We do the algorithm design, we do the NFT magic, the from top to bottom. There isn't
Nice.
anything that we outsource. And so it allows us to create these experiences. We don't have to go, okay, I've created this art, now I need to get a dev to compile it. No, the people bringing it together are infused with the same spirit and perspective and context as the artists themselves. And so truly at heart, and this we'll get into it when we look into some of Charlotte Fang's early writings, there's this phrase that finance can be a creative medium. I'd take it one further and say pretty much anything can be a creative medium. The way that you compose your whitelist can be a creative medium. The way that you roll out a mint in terms of the experience can be a creative medium. Everything is a creative medium looked at in the right way. And so step 0 is these letters that you will have seen in, if you go to Janny, go to media, I've sent out about 12 letters to people at the moment to kind of tease it. But there's going to, we could generate infinite number of those letters and they'd all be unique. And inside it, at a certain point, maybe on April the 20th, we'll hit phase 1. So in phase 1, then you start to see the background. Here we have Kaita Falls based in Guyana. This is influenced by a tweet that Smokey put out when Pool 2, one of the devs over there and data analysts, told Smokey that Mewtwo from Pokemon's actually from Guyana. Now, why is Guyana important? Is because Guyana homes most of the Amazon. And so most of the fruits, foods, and medicines, about 80% of the global food supply has its origins in the Amazon forest. From processes of colonization and trade routes and this type of thing. People transposed stuff like tomatoes from the jungle environment and kind of brought them to other climates and developed them way back when. If you kind of track most food sources and medicines back to their origins, a really vast amount of them come from Guyana. And here we have the tallest waterfall in Guyana in the background. But we don't know much else. There's this shadowy figure. So at this point, you know what background you've got. Certain backgrounds are extremely rare. And others are a bit more kind of common. That's not to devalue them. Most of us have places that we orbit. So now we scroll down, and now the next, the first was a generic shadow, and now we see actually the shadow of your final Mibera. Like this, you can see, okay, this Mibera has a hat. Not all of them do have a hat. And we can't really figure much out. But we also get the molecule in the top left corner. I don't know if you can see that. It's a bit white against the background. And here you start to get a picture of what type of Mibera this might be. Like, is it a drug-fucked Mibera? Is it the molecule for dopamine? Maybe this is a Mibera who's super chill and a meditator. Maybe it's a clear pill milady. Who knows? But you start to get a taste and a flavor for what your Mibera might be. Now, at any point here, a trader might go, this seems or feels rare, maybe I'll book profit. I don't know. Now we go down to phase 3.
So probably you mentioned before, there are probably not hidden, but traits and overlays and attributes which are known by whales or by those who are playing this game for a long time that are more valuable. And I could imagine.
Well, actually, no one knows. No one, to be honest, I have not even seen a full generation yet.
Okay.
So, but I do have all of the rubrics for the rarity house, and we'll release that as part of the technical document, but we want to release it later after all of the horse trading happens, all of the jeets are out, all of the paper pours, all of the people
Yeah, but
booking their
most
2,
often,
3, 4x, whatever. And then we'll start revealing. Go
sometimes
on.
rarity doesn't mean that it's the most valuable. So you have the CryptoPunks where there's a hoodie trade that's not that rare. It's rare, but not that rare. But there's a high premium on it. So maybe
That's it.
we will see
And that's the
similar stuff.
cultural. That's
Yeah.
That's the cultural. And we don't want to overlay the rarity rubric from the creator side. We do want there to be a period of time where people are figuring that shit out for themselves. But of course, like internally, there's a bell curve, and there's stuff which is very common. So it goes from 1 to 5 in terms of rarity. There's the most common stuff is around the 3. So the most rare stuff is like let's say the 1s and the 5s. And so, but we don't. You'll be able to infer that stuff as the traits reveal, of course, on trait scanners or on markets. You'll be able to start, and this is where sophisticated operators have an advantage because they can operationalize and automate that process of building out, let's say, the rubric of how many of a thing there are. And you can start building up your map, but we want to leave a lot of that to public discovery at a certain point, maybe a month, 2, 3 months in. So these documents that Charlotte Fang wrote and released, remember, they were released 2, 3 months after the Milady Mint opened. The Milady Mint opened in August. They weren't published till, I believe, September, October. And so I want to not tell the market this is what is rare. I want to give the market a chance to determine that for itself. And then eventually we will release a technical document that says, here's all the raw data. And that can then smash into whatever the chaotic kind of grassroots response to all of this is. So here we have phase 3. You get the overlay up top. So you get your sun sign at this point. And here you start to see the hair. You've got a generic expression on the face. You haven't got any objects yet, but you do see the clothing. And you start seeing kind of more. Eyes are closed, mouth is neutral, eyebrows are relaxed. So you're seeing a bit more now. Like what kind of skin color does your Mibera have? What hair color, what hairstyle? And then next down in phase 4, where we're all headed to soon, McDonald's. I hope you've applied for your kind of Steady Teddy whitelist, the original link, because down bad apparently. But here we now start to see not just the hat, but also the moon sign of this Mibera. Okay, next up.
Yeah.
Okay, so here you get the reveal of your rising sign, but also any face accessories, your final mouth, any earrings if you have any of them, but your eyebrows and eyes are still relaxed. And now we can scroll down. And then, yeah, here we get the glasses, your eyes, and your eyebrows wake up. And so next up is any kind of tattoos or the thing down in the bottom right is the element. Are you fire? Are you wind? Are you water? Are you earth? Sorry, in the previous phase, you would have been told.
That's mine.
Yeah. Are you going to be ancient or modern? You would have been told in the previous one. And then phase 8. Any masks or items, any kigus or robes, any one of one elements kind of come through at this point. So it may be the case, actually, and this is an interesting jester moment, is we have scattered one of ones through this collection, but they only appear in this last phase. So you might go through every other step and you might be like, oh, I don't like this one. And then you sell it. But then in this last step, it goes through a fucking massive wormhole and actually completely changes into a one of one grail. And so one of the risks that you take if you start trading in this period between phases 1 and 8 is that you could, you know, you could swap a one of one for a hamburger. Now that's, you know, if you like to live life dangerously, we like to introduce that element of gambling, risk, upside, this type of thing. And then bottom left is kind of the, let's say, the systematic rarity. So there's different gradients of rarity, and you get like triple S, A, B, C. I believe there's like a D, which is a broken pill. But of course, as we've learned from Milady, sometimes the ones without a grading or the worst thing, they have the best vibe. And people, you get entire subcultures who are like, I actually prefer the Ds. I prefer the fucked up ones. And so, yeah, this is maybe has done an okay job of kind of, as a team, we don't hire in from the outside. We do for, let's say, the art war room. Yeah, that they are ecstasy as well. You know, it's Mibera after all. But really, what I want to communicate here is that there's been a lot of, let's say, moments of feuding within the Milady camp and Romelia camp, and a lot of that comes down to the fact that whenever you have a separation between, let's say, leadership and the technical ownership and development, you open yourself up to all manner of coups, disagreements, people taking revenge, and this type of thing, as we've seen happen time and again with Romelia, historically speaking, where there's claims over like who owns the art, who created it, which artist made it, who's got the credentials to the smart contracts, who's got the credentials to the social media, all of that kind of nonsense, which happens when you have a project that's not technical in its DNA from the inside out. You just don't get that with Mibera. Like, Janny's the benevolent dictator. I'm the systems administrator. I have all of the keys. They're robustly backed up. I've got a dead man switch. If Charlie wants to send Mossad my way at some point because I anger them on the timeline, whatever. But like, everything's been built in a way where it just cuts out the nonsense. And we can focus on the stuff that's actually interesting, you know? So yeah, I've been very explicit. You guys know what's coming. Anyone who's looking at this stream, they now know the dates, the times, the phases. You understand that there's going to be a phased release with this thing. You understand that by phase 8, you may be holding a one of one and you won't know till then. So you have a competitive advantage and kind of asymmetric information that you can turn into alpha, that many people who are in, let's say, made their ways in the side gate into the Mibera whitelist. They might just be flipping for a 2x, 3x, 4x, or whatever. But people who understand more of the information, you're more informed, so you've got a wider palette of choices to make. No judgment on the choice that you do make, but at least you have more options because you can understand and make more strategies, you know? I don't know. Look, Eileen, I'm if it were just my choice, I would. But there's a balance between, how do I put it this way? Not making people wait too late. I know other collections have made people, wait years and years and years. So maybe we could do it over a few months. But we've been building this thing for 2 years already. We've already made people wait for 2 years. We've waited 3 years for a chain. So in this instance, I've got a feeling of strike whilst the iron is hot. Now, of course, it's long been advertised that Mibera would launch at the time it is, and it just so happens to coincide with when the Bera Chain Foundation have decided to launch Pole. You know, I'd say maybe they've intervened on our timeline, not us on theirs. So we're not shifting. And it's just a happy coincidence that stuff is happening all around the same time. The other consideration I want to factor in is I don't want to cramp the Steady Teddy style. the last time we did that, they fucking swatted the rave event, and it was swarming with Teds and Feds everywhere, and Teddies. They're just how do you put it? They're feral. So I want to give them enough space to do their thing. So maybe we factor that into the reveal, and I think in that sense, that's why it's probably better to wait till at least 420 to start that process. But any questions off the back of all of that?
I love that how it's folded out and how these phases. You know why
This
I
is the
like
tip
them?
of the
Because
iceberg. It's the tip of the ice. This is a tiny slither of what's coming. Wait till you see what we've got coming with Baby Bera. I don't want to. I'll let him sneak that, but you're going to see stuff that this sector has never seen before, that the internet has never seen before. Full stop.
it's already 100 times more than every other NFT project has done. So kudos. I love it. I fucking love it. So what I love about it is that you have these phases. There was one collection before the Memeland potatoes. So you had every week it evolved a bit. And we were anticipating and waiting, okay, what's the next phase? What's the next phase? So it builds up attention,
was
it
it?
builds up
Was there
momentum.
a week between each reveal?
I think it was a week, yeah. And it
What
was
was the
like five or
community
6
sentiment around that? Did people feel that was okay, or did it feel too long, or what's the deal?
It was maybe a bit too long, but we loved that. So we knew
Okay.
every like you said, I think it was every first day it got revealed for the next phase. But there were podcasts and we are waiting for it. So that builds up hype, that builds up momentum, that builds attention. And what I love about it that you are obliged, so you have to look at it and you will learn the traits. So I'll be honest, if I look at the Miladies, I know there's a lot of traits and I know I can look after them, but I'm not that into deep to look at it and choose, okay, which trait I'm going to like, which trait stands for what. But if you build up these phases, then you have to, okay, you have the background, okay, which backgrounds are there, my colleagues, my community, who get which background. So you start to discuss, you start to build attention also on the timeline. I love it. It's very well thought out. So congrats.
It's how do we put this? I can't remember. It's probably Jenny thought of it, but certainly it was Gumi and Zaguchi kind of pulled it off. Maybe we'll consider like one phase a week. Either it will be each Tuesday and Thursday, or it will be each Thursday, let's say, because I think over an 8-week period, and certainly if the community is assured that we're not, the art is there, we're not just being dragged along because they're trying to, delay things. Well, folks, if you're listening to us here, have your say, not just in the comments, like on Twitter, like post some comments on what you think. Should it be every Tuesday and Thursday? Should it be every Thursday? Should it be once a month? Should it be every full moon? Like, we can do whatever. We want it to be a dialogue with you guys because fundamentally, that's the way we work. There's still time.
I have one crucial question about it. So we will later touch on this liquid backing thing. So
yes.
How would it affect this reveal phase, this liquid backing? So could you potentially launch the liquid backing and simultaneously not revealed all the phases? So then then I would be perfectly...
The liquid backing is attached to the NFT form itself. It doesn't relate to the traits. Yeah. We could launch the liquid backing with the envelope. And we may do that,
then I would say it's okay. Also, for me, it would be okay for every week because then builds up hype. I would do it always the same time,
Yeah,
and
same time and
yeah,
same day each week. So then people can put a recurring event in their calendar.
I have a great idea. What if we would do like a series, like now? So we will present um, phase one, phase two
Yeah,
every
I'm down.
week.
Let's do
Like
it. Yeah, yeah. Happy
that
to.
would
That
be
would be great.
dope.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
You can do
Then
screen
people
sharing. It's
chat. Yeah,
my computer setup is way too North Korea paranoid to make this shit easy, to be honest with you. So, but I would like to at some point. I'm going to do a whiteboard series, just like full on Janny mirror mask in the priest outfit with a whiteboard, walking through the next product. And just whiteboarding it. So I do need to figure that shit out at some point, but not right now. But yeah, let's do it. I can commit to that.
I'm here for it. That would be dope. Okay.
Baby Bearer online rave at each reveal. We do need to
Oh,
factor
that
in
would be
how we
next
can
level.
incorporate the music aspect to it. I'll chat with Baby Bearer. That's a good idea.
Mibera professor.
But
You
Migs,
know
I saw
this
that
meme?
the professor. I've seen people make Goodwill Hunting. The janitor in that is really good at maths, and then there's also the professor from that show, the Heist or something. Mint days, but Migs, basically at phase 8, your entire your entire Mibera can get swapped out, and instead of everything that built up over 7 weeks, you can get delivered a one of one of the rarest of the rarest. So there's a chance of that. Hang on, what did Mix just say? Comments.
We'll blend
So
it again.
if you mint on day 1, that is when your reveal time begins. If Mibera does not mint out and someone mints 2 months later, would that same every week reveal take place, or would it? Let's rather than we've spent so many years theory crafting and simulating and modeling, but we're days away from the pre-mint. Let's see how the pre-mint goes. If we even need to figure that out, then we'll figure it out. But yeah, let's cross that bridge when we get to it. We'll know this time next week. We'll know what we're dealing with. So let's put a pin in that one, Mix. I realized I interrupted you when you were talking about the potatoes and the once a week thing. Was there anything else from the reveal phases here?
No, that was also exciting. So you waited for it, and every week you knew it will go into the next phase. I think at the beginning you didn't know how many phases there will be and what the final form will be. But there was every week there was a podcast, and there were talks and chats, and the end of the podcast, I think there was this reveal, this art update. It's went to the
It would be
next
it'd be
stage.
kind of cool. So we could go on to, for example, Magic Eden or Magic Eden or wherever, and then click into any Mibera, and you could ask about any of the whatever traits got revealed, and I could tell you the story of that trait. And over the
That would
course
be awesome.
of that 8 weeks, you'd have 1,337 stories about what each trait means philosophically, in terms of party and technology history, in terms of internet culture, in terms of its linked. Why is it in the Mibera? We could do that. It would, it take thousands of hours to do the full unpacking, but I'm happy to. This has been a labor of love more than anything.
You've put so much work in it, so let's appreciate it. So I would say that would be awesome. So people who want to listen, who want to join, who want to see and know the lore about, welcome them. So yeah,
Okay,
good idea. Good.
should we get started?
Yeah,
This was a
it was
long
only the
intro.
introduction. Yeah.
All right, let's get into the real deal. So to summarize, in podcast 1 or streamcast or interview 1, we spoke about the cultural and artistic side, and maybe some of the contextual atmosphere that Mibera was created from. We looked into a tiny bit of Milady history, with the caveat that neither Morkos or Jani were around right at the beginning. Many in the Remelia core, like Central State, would say that we're not Milady, we're cringe, we're whatever, we should keep in our lane. And that's absolutely true. Like, we're not Milady, we're not kind of affiliated in that front. And so you should do your own research, do your own digging, and go to voices from it within the core to kind of hear it in their own words from their own voices. That being said, one of the questions that Charlotte communicated in her early writings was, when are the real critics going to show up who actually appreciate what we're doing here? And to be honest with you, this is what deep ontological, epistemological, like thorough inside out critique feels like, Charlotte. So I get that we're getting under your skin, but this is what it feels like to be under the microscope, to be taken apart, dissected, re-put back together by Dr. Frankenstein and co. It's done with deep love, appreciation, and an acknowledgement of the contributions to internet culture. And I do genuinely believe an aspect of culture and society more widely. The cultural imprint of Milady is certainly nothing to be downplayed. And so just that caveat, we're not like Milady people. Milady people would probably say we have no right to kind of represent in that way. So that's true, you know. Any mistakes that are made in this, you should just treat everything that Jenny is communicating as maybe a starting point for your own research. I make a lot of mistakes all the time. I don't mind apologizing if I do. It's not for the purpose of trying to misrepresent or trying to delude you into something. So I'm fallible all the time. Where we got to was we arrived at Mibera is to Milady as Batman, Joker is to Batman. So in this universe, let's say Mibera is the chaotic Joker type entity. Milady is the more kind of staunch, clear-pilled, holding up the light side of Gotham, Batman in this instance. I think it also tracks because, so far as I understand it, Charlie comes from a pretty rich family, and Batman is that kind of like, has a lot of that side of stuff to draw down on. And so that's where we kind of left it in part 1. But that's not all the whole story to Mibera. There's actually, as we mentioned, one of the big differences between Milady and Mibera is that Milady's been built by, let's say, kids with a arts and culture background, maybe more writers or philosophers on that side, but not deep technicians. They themselves are not developers, although they've attracted many developers to their community. But inside the core of Remelia, you can think of it more as like a culture engine. On the Mibera side, we're not as good writers as them. We're not like as good at schizo posting or whatever as them. Like, we write slop, but at core, like, we are cypherpunks. Like, we haven't had, like, to dox myself, I've not been to university. I'm self-trained in everything that I've done. I haven't had formal education, right? When I write slop, it's because it comes from the gutter. Let's put it that way. I grew up in the internet and rave cultures. This is where I'm from, right? And I came up in a time of, like, I'd say kind of free party anarchist types who questioned everything, but also had a very DIY, do-it-yourself attitude. And then when I hit the internet, I happened to come up amongst some deep cypherpunks, right? I didn't know it at the time, but the union between, like, there was quite a close tie between, I'd say, radical technologists and radical free party practitioners and this type of thing. So those were the context that I came up in. And so that is really imbued in the heart of both THJ and Mibera, is that everything is backed by deep data analysis, deep tech, touches on cryptography, deep smart contract work. And then not just this, there's many bridges between the type of stuff Milady writes about in theory. And Jani was there in person. So when they speak about Nick Land from the CCRU, from Warwick and this type of thing, I was there, right? I was partying with these people. I understand the type of conversations they were having. I understand the drugs that they took. I understand what their music tastes were. I understand the arguments that we would get into at the side of, like, a dance floor, right? In an abandoned building or a field. Like, a lot of the time, thinking doesn't come from a vacuum. It comes from a social context. Like, a lot of the schizo posting from Milady's emerges from this moment in internet and society history where a lot of people were put into this boiler room online because of COVID, right? You can't extract Milady from the emergence of this global pandemic, from the emergence of social media. Schizo. It's all a part of what contributes to the atmosphere in which people are thinking together. And in that same way, the writings from which stuff like accelerationism and all of the different competing thoughts at the time emerged from was in a big way from these free party atmospheres, rave, DIY, anti-authoritarianism, questioning the state, recession, and this type of thing. And it's always been this way. If you drill down into any technical innovation from Silicon Valley or anywhere else, you will, if you look at the social surroundings of what was going on, there'll be drugs involved, there'll be parties involved, there'll be countercultural aspects involved, there'll be the status quo response of suppression to that, depending on which side of the ball that you fall. Like, even AI, for example, if you go back far enough, every time you do this, you find the same story. Virilia and other thinkers from Chile who were writing about and looking at what has informed early cybernetic culture, and theorists who were essentially looking at the emergence of, let's say, life, autopoietic systems, and this type of thing, which then went on to inform early AI systems, cybernetics, and this type of thing. If you read their biographies or kind of, let's say, guerrilla documentation of that time, a lot of that thinking was happening during times in Chile of vast social unrest. They had breakthroughs in thinking when the structures that they were working within, such as the university, were completely collapsing. The students, there was an uprising, all of the existing kind of power structures and infrastructure of HR, the way stuff was done, was collapsing. And you had the emergence of essentially distributed groups of people made up of not just teachers and professors, but also students, PhD students, like people just from the street, talking together about these ideas. And that's where a lot of these breakthroughs for stuff like autopoetics come in. And if you look at the way that that's then used now in current AI systems, it's a part of this type of thing. The point Jenny's trying to make here is that there is a wisdom, whether you've got formal training and you can write really well. I disagree that, to be honest, Charlie's a good writer. I think a lot of it's, to be honest with you, for someone who was there and speaking with these people, a jabbled mess that like looks cool on the surface, but when you drill into it, there's fucking contradictions all the way through it. But that's an aside. Everyone is free to write what they want and whatever. It's cool. I'm not here to kind of get into a dick swinging contest over theory. It's not very interesting to me. But what I can say is that looking at the atmosphere from which knowledge is produced is very illuminative. And I think one of the things within Mibera is that I'm trying to do and communicate to people is become self-aware that you're in a moment in time, that you're connected to a history of stuff, and that you are an active agent in history, and you are creating tomorrow's history right now, right? And yes, we're all here to flip a trade for burgers, whatever. You want to make a profit and that. Yes, to all of that, but that's just one layer of the game. Like when you're involved in radical upheavals in society, especially ones that we didn't ever figure it out with the free party movement. To be honest with you, 80 to 90% of the work is done by very few people, and they're very close to the poverty line. You'd walk around with a fucking bucket hoping that people would throw in change, but none of us had any fucking money. Like people have chosen the lifestyle, but are pretty much impoverished, right? The difference that we have on chain, online, and whatever is we've got these systems and economic flows that just are unimaginable compared to what exists IRL. So that was a really long spiel to basically the difference between Romelia is they're theory craft art kids who are good at culture, right? Over on the THJ side, to be honest, we are battle-hardened cypherpunks who have learned our lessons from the grassroots in the trenches in real life and in early internet culture. So that's the difference. But I feel what we share is the universe, the Jester universe, let's call it, has decided to, through Charlie and that culture co, unleash what they call the egregore. Nick Land also speaks about this in a big way through accelerationism and the kind of heat death of the universe and all of this other stuff. These aren't new ideas. And I believe we're kind of touching on the same or similar energetic force. And so I have a lot of respect for them, even if I dislike, I dislike with all of my heart forms of centralization. And that's really what it comes down to. But the true technology at the heart of Milady, and this is where we're going to start getting into the real meat and potatoes of it, is the radical technology that's emergent from Milady is that grassroots emergent chaos energy that was kind of uncontrollable for a moment. And so that's the starting point. I hope, can you bring up Charlie's writings on Golden Light?
Yes.
Let's
One thing I want to mention is that I never thought about it, but I always think about how to bring people, how to educate people about NFTs. It's really tough because you have two part of the society. One is like a TikTok adrenaline junkie who is only watching something for 3 seconds, and on the other hand you have these degens like here in the comments who are minting articles and paying money for to be part of this culture. And how you bring to the normal people who might be interested, how you explain them there is a subculture what's taking place. I don't really know if you have to do that, but I find it interesting. What my idea, what came up is, we study history and we go to school and we hear stories about important writers at the time of wars or at the time of something big happened. And maybe I'm just have a rant out, but what if this is the next iteration or our form of expression, what is happening now? So maybe you touched on that. This is how I interpreted it. So and it's, I think it's fucking cool to bring that to an NFT collection and make it write it on a blockchain and have all these cultural aspects in like an NFT collection with the art, with the lore, with everything what's happening now. So that was a sentence what you mentioned, that back then Miladies wrote about this rave culture or try to replicate that. And now what you said is now we're having the opportunity to write our own history.
Yes. I think on raves, the parties that I've been to a lot of them in cities all over the world. Not people, you know, I'm not really very doxed, so I go to these things. People don't know who I am. I don't tell people who I am. And the raves that Milady puts on, I would call them fucking hell. All right. So this is sorry for your loss. I don't know, it's my autism or whatever it is. Like, I don't want to tell people what to think. I want to data dump the context and you decide for yourself. But the abridged version of this is the free party scene was becoming too powerful. We were creating essentially villages that would run for months and months and months on end. During the summer, we would take over fields like Castle Morton and whatever, and we'd be there for so long, it's essentially a settlement, right? And you would be there all summer, and then in the winter, you would go back to the cities and you would squat an empty building, right? Winters, city, empty buildings, put on parties, summer, on the road, going to different stuff. The state did not like how many people were getting sucked into this this economy, right? Because it destabilized the status quo. None of us were paying taxes. We were doing what we wanted. It wasn't pretty to look at for the grey world, let's put it that way. And so the inevitable response then is police suppression and regulations and laws and this type of thing. So to the point where the government ruled out repetitive beats with the gathering of people. They outlawed sound and people freely assembling, right? And then they brought in a whole bunch of cops from the States who were used to suppressing the civil rights movement, and they militarized it, right? They brutalized people. They basically did terrorism on their own population alongside the laws that they were bringing in, right? They broke the back of the movement by essentially, you know, I won't. You know what police brutality looks like. I don't need to go there. And so what ends up happening, though, at the flip side, is a watered down version of the vibrant life force. This is the way that capitalism is this constantly adaptive force. And in this sense, I do kind of agree with Nick. I do agree in this accelerationism kind of aspect, where they essentially say it's already happened. We're just on the path. There's some energetic or kind of alien life force that's highly intelligent, that's essentially using the economy and whatever, and we're just agents in that game. And so the capitalism, generally speaking, is an adaptive system. And so then what they did is they privatized it and they individualized it and they sold it to people as entrepreneurship. And so what you started to see was licensed clubs opening up, and you could do parties within a set realm of time, within authorized buildings, as long as they had licenses. So that would absorb some of the, like, let's say, less self-aware aspects of the culture and the raw exuberance of the energy, at the same time as actively suppressing those of us putting on these parties. To put this into perspective, folks were on the road and they were being trailed by blacked out helicopters and kind of deep state shit who like were trailing a car or two who were moving around just to stop them from being able to scout positions. It got to that level where the military was internally deployed and this type of thing. If you think this is conspiracy theory and whatever, fine. You don't have to believe me. Anyone who's been deeply involved in shit understands the lengths to which the state will go to destabilize alternate ways of being. And so what we now see in club culture and this type of thing is these mega clubs or clubs that are highly regulated spaces. And there's like there's rules around like you need bouncers, you need this, you need that. And the Milady raves are happening within this container, right? I think the use of the word rave is a stretch, because it's actually just a fine. If you have a Milady NFT, you get in for free. It's this prestige thing and whatever, and each rave is a bit different. They're put on by different crews in local cities. But when we speak of rave, we speak of those moments where, I go back to the beginning of this call, the cops are there and you drive through them or you run through them anyway, right? That's very different to putting on a party in a building that's got a curfew, right? They're just really different things. And so the use of rave and drawing on it, this is a bit the different. You use the word appreciation, right? I love that word because it has a twofold meaning. In economics, if I say appreciation, it makes me think of compounding to increase the value of something. It means you have skin in the game and this type of thing. I think appreciation is something which grows. On a cultural level, I'm getting really deep here, I'm sorry. Appreciation, like the stuff that I'm talking about, to be honest, it's a trauma for me. Like, I have love for that time, and it was also a period of fucking brutalization, right, by the status quo. The lessons drawn from that period come from deep love and come from deep trauma, and they're lessons hard earned and hard learned, right? And I'd say anything which engages with a culture which appreciates it means that you are actually in some way contributing back to the struggles from which that culture emerges, right? So that's appreciation. Sometimes people mistake the map for the territory and they appropriate. Appropriate is a form of extraction, where essentially you're taking something which has been produced from a zone of struggle, from oftentimes a community under fire, and you appropriate it because you're creating something that maybe sounds like it, looks like it, but actually in the process of making it, you're not really giving back to the struggle from which those things kind of originated and emerged. So in trading sense, that's much more akin to extraction, short-term kind of booking profit or whatever. It's not giving back to the origin. And this is one of the pendulum swings it's just a feature of life, I think, where you have this pendulum swing between struggle, people producing and creating something out of thin air to expand the zone of freedom. They create something genuinely new. Anyone who's Black and Black traditions, any community who's been under fire, where essentially the status quo suppresses them, and then they create a zone of freedom that's vibrant, has life force. The Just a Universe smiles through it. It's got life. And then you get people who look over there and go, that's cool. And then they take parts of it, but it's not appreciating the struggle. It's not growing the pie from which it origins. And eventually that stripped back, defanged version gets packaged up and resold and profited on and commercialized, etc. Right? And so it's just this pendulum swing of like, you swing too far one way and then you start coming back the other way. Sorry, that was a fucking rant. Okay, let's get back to...
the good point is I start to understand. So I love this. I think you don't have the opportunity to go out and make a half an hour video or content and tell all the stuff behind the thought process. So I appreciate that you're here, and I think a lot of people are enjoying what you are saying. So yeah.
Like, just if you take nothing else from this, there are those of us, and I don't get into the identity thing. It's the least interesting thing to me. But what I will communicate about my personal family history is like, it's got connections to medicine people. It's got connections to, let's say, chaos entities at that end of the spectrum. But I've also got long traditions in all sides of my family lines. I'm a complete mongrel mashup that come from the side of resistance. Like, through all of my family lines, they have all experienced suppression by the status quo or being locked out of the status quo. I've got in my family lines people engaged in guerrilla warfare who've had to adapt and survive under very extreme conditions. And so this just seems to be the universe has this for us. So but this is that I treat the zone that I'm in crypto no differently than any other part of either my personal histories on various different family lines or the histories of where I've come up in early internet culture and early rave culture. To me, it's the same energy coming through. And so if it feels at times like Janny's taking this a bit seriously, I'm taking it deadly fucking seriously. Like, I don't know what game other people are playing. I made it, to be honest, I broke intergenerational poverty many cycles ago. Like, to be honest with you, I could be chilling on the beach, but that's not my mission, right? There's stuff to be done in this space. There's more room for movement and more potential in this zone than most other parts of the economy. And people who realize this, there's a lot of us still in crypto, right? But there's also a large dilution, but that's fine. Like, those of us who are like Janny, we're potent. And those who are also aligned are also potent. And I genuinely believe in that 0.005% thing. I've seen like the free culture movement lived off the back of very few people actually were involved in doing 80 to 90% of the work, right? But that's also fine. It just seems to be the nature of things. Part of the reason for Wake Up, you hear it throughout the Mibera soundtracks, music, videos, is Wake Up. That is drawn from the Spiral Tribe tunes. If you listen back to their tunes, it's Wake Up. Like, we're here to help folks. And this comes back to the point that you were making around how do you explain NFTs to normies, right? I don't think of it that way. I don't think about saving others. I think if we can save ourselves and you wake up and you're living life to its in your most engaged and enlivened state, that that's the point. And I think the more of us doing that, the more other people wake up, right? Because remember, the systems that surround us, they want to put us into a stupor. There's a reason things like in social media, they call it the feed. You're a farmyard animal. Your neck is craned. You're supping up what you're fed. They're dysregulating you and packaging you up and selling you to the military, advertisers, and whatever. Like, that is the state that you are the best subject in society as. And there are folks like Janny and others who are lucky to be in a life position through heritages of struggle where we see. And really just our mission is just staying awake and being a part of other people waking up. It's really no different than counterculture or subcultures throughout time and history. It's really no different to shamans and whatever going back to day. This is just an expressive form for it. So in Janny's, I've onboarded thousands of people to crypto since arriving in 2011. And the conclusion that I've derived from is that the most potent influence for change that you can achieve is to change yourself to the absolute maximum. And in that process, actually, I found along the way far more people who are actually attuned in that sense. And Janny touches people from across the internet with a single word, right? They'll share a single word on Twitter, and then I'll reach out to them and know that I found another one, right? It doesn't, yeah. I think that the normie thing is and how to onboard crypto, to be honest, is a false flag and what's the word I'm looking for? A facade. That's not the real game. The real game is that very few people can have massive, massive, groundbreaking, society-shifting, outsized impact once they're self-aware of their role. Remember, like, so the story goes, Rosa Parks refused to stand up from that seat on that bus, and it triggered a butterfly effect of other things happening, right? And yes, there were other people involved in this type of thing, but I don't know. I've been in too many small, tiny IRC rooms with 4 or 5 of us where we've done some shit online, and it's triggered global events like of other shit going on. I've been in rooms of people putting on free parties that turned into months and months long, like counter villages and stuff like that. So I'm not in the game for the masses. I'm in the game for the few, but the few that I'm in it for are the ones who are awake. And I think the more of us that are awake, we have the power and potential to wake up a few others. And actually that is a sufficient mission. And I think we'll see how it goes with Mibera. I feel that the universe has communicated to me that this is a home base from which we can operate. And that's the way I'm treating it. I'm treating it like a base of operations.
I'm a bit speechless because I wrote it to you. I believe in karma. I believe in destiny. So I don't think it's a chance. So it's randomly that we are sitting here and I'm part of it. Why? I don't know why, but I feel this energy. So I don't want to talk about myself, but I kind of started crypto and this YouTube channel randomly. It wasn't my intent, but it was like nobody talked about NFTs in Hungary, and I took the chance and I said, okay, fuck it, I will make it. And before that, I had a YouTube channel in German, and nobody's watching it. So nobody watched it for half a year. And then suddenly I started in Hungarian and about NFTs. And from 0 to 100, I've got like, for my first video, it popped up and people came and commented and liked what I did. So I didn't, it wasn't my intention to do content creation, but after a time I found myself deeply in it. So, and now I was wondering, why are you doing this interview with me? Why there are a lot
Well,
of
look,
guys who do a
yeah.
better
Look,
job?
here's the thing, right? Is you sent a DM saying, "Hey, I do a thing. Do you want to talk?" And because of my background, like I come from the free party scene where you like if someone is there and they're in the trenches and they're the right person, right? And so I didn't know how many listeners you had. I didn't do any background research into you. I just said, okay, this person has reached out and they want to talk. Let's say yes. I'm so glad I did. I think
Happy to hear that.
it's true of I mistrust any leader or any person in power who wants power or who wants to be a leader. To be honest, the position that Jani is in, I'm an introvert, actually, believe it or not. I'm deeply, in terms of, just to be vulnerable or whatever, my form of intimacy is I don't generally like intimacy or being open because of, intergenerational harm across both family lines that showed up as like a shitty childhood or whatever, right? Connecting with people sets Jani's nervous system off as if I'm going to get eaten by a tiger, right? I hate this position that I'm in crypto, but also looking around, I also understand like this is my reason for being alive. This is what the universe has said. And so it matters very little, personally speaking, whether this is my preference or not. In the grand realm of humanity, I think there are times where like the universe says, do you want to contribute to the bigger game, or do you want to look after just yourself and your own feelings and whatever? And a lot of the time, I have historically opted for the personal comfort level, but for whatever reason in this moment, it's that. So the fact that you're a content creator who didn't mean to set out on content creation, I believe is what makes you one of the exceptional content creators in the space, to be honest, from what I've seen. And I'm very happy that you reached out, and I'm very happy I said yes, because I think I'm not sure this conversation would come out really in another form, and it certainly hasn't, to be honest with you.
Yeah. We have a lot more common than I thought. So yeah, it's like I feel a bit strange. So not
As
because what you said, but because so many things came together. And as you said, maybe if you are talking to another person, all these things, what you want to say wouldn't have happened. So I'm glad we're both here.
It's like a
And
you know those tuning forks in music, like you hit it and then it's resonating, and if there's another
yeah,
fork that's
yeah,
on the same, and it also then start. That's the same with people, and it doesn't matter if you're separated across vast distances over the internet. That's what's happening,
yeah,
right? It's the wake up thing. Is like if you're vibrating
crazy.
in the way that you need to, then those other people who are attuned in that way will also, right? But let's get started, right? We've done a long
Yeah,
intro,
yeah,
so click into this. I'm just gonna let's do a whistle stop tour. Folks can jump into the article and read them themselves. This
yeah,
PFP NFTs, we haven't seen profile first design yet, so that was Charlie Fang basically going, essentially a lot of the NFTs that we've seen so far are kind of ugly, so let's make one that actually looks good for using as a profile picture. And they speak there about some of the thoughts there, but in essence what they start touching on is also, hey, if this looks good as your PFP, then you can actually start separating your personal identity from the internet usage. Now, I actually really truly believe in a lot of that in early internet cultures, it's only a very modern phenomenon that we're expected to bind our passport ID to these internet connected devices, right? It used to be the case that every new service that you joined up, you created a new username. And people, part of the reason for the craziness of the internet is you didn't have these things like profile pictures or real names or shit like that. You were just like a being connecting to a network, and you had text to communicate. And all of these weird synchronicities would emerge where basically you connected through shared humor, way of speaking, sharing ideas, and this type of thing. And it was really an interesting moment because it was like a melting pot where people who were resonating in a particular way, who maybe felt stranded in their local area because they were geographically bound and limited by the number of people that they knew, were connecting with folks across this network who maybe they resonated with more. And a lot of magic came from that. I won't, you can read that article. All of them are worth, it's not the best writing, but I think some of the ideas have merit. What I really like and love, going back to the question that someone else asked, was what's the difference between a Milady and a Bored Ape? Or sorry, a CryptoPunk
CryptoPunk.
is like, I think what I really respect about Charlie and the Romelia crew, I don't know who influenced this more, so I don't know who to attribute, but was the fact that they shared their thinking in public, right? Even if what's happening behind the scenes with them often diverges quite widely from what they say they're about. That's fine. Let's ignore that kind of hypocrisy for a moment. I really enjoy the process of like, here's some of what we're thinking. And I think that was one of the radical contributions of Milady culture. And it's certainly one that Jani also shares. In fact, we were sharing our thinking on the THJ Mirror website before I even realized there was this depth to Milady. So that's like a kindred spirit in approach there. Now, next we come up to this nouns, what the fuck. So Nouns DAO, if you don't know what that is a experiment in NFT form where there's a DAO that mints one new NFT per day into perpetuity. I believe every 10th Nouns DAO NFT goes into the creator treasury, which the team can sell, and that's how they pay themselves. And the idea in this article, I believe it's a long time since I read it, but essentially speaks about that suicide roller coaster, where eventually, because there's no end to these NFTs, it kind of requires this infinite expansion of users coming in to kind of maintain the value over time. Like if you just are constantly printing out new NFTs, eventually there won't be like the supply will exceed the demand, and then you kind of get this bleed out over time. The reason I bring this up is basically there's an experiment with Miladies, which is now defunct because of an internal coup and a civil war between the devs from that period in time and Romelia. But they created Bonkler. And Bonkler, they experimented with the form where essentially they had somewhat of a similar distribution model, but you could burn your Bonkler for a share of the treasury. And they tinkered with some of the mechanics around this stuff. And what I really want to touch on here is that Milady, whilst they're not, let's say, builders, I would say they are technologists in the sense of trying to tinker with new forms. And they are treating kind of crypto and finance as a medium. It's just they're doing it, let's say, more as tinkerers, because they ultimately, if they have an idea, they have to go out and solicit someone to build it for them. And that's really, you know, if you're not a Charlie sycophant and something happens and a rupture, as stuff often does, then you get these kind of explosions and ruptures, right? The next article is on secondary. What I'm doing here, by the way, is I'm giving you tiny little Lego bricks to show where Milady was thinking and what they did. And then I'm going to show you what the Mibera version of it is to give you the context of what I'm doing right now. So on secondary, what this is talking about is essentially Charlie was like, you can't expect that the market will always pay royalties, and that actually it's a broken model to try and build around this thing, because he was prescient in this, visionary in the sense that it wasn't long after this that Blur entered the scene. They switched off royalties, and then there was that whole thing, and you had the stripping out of a lot of the artistic kind of expression and experimentation, and then it became like a race to the bottom and this type of thing, and it was like a real gutting of the vibe in that NFT sector. And there's also another very interesting component in this piece where Charlie proposes a alternate model for artists to fund themselves. And he talks, I believe it's in this one, about the artist's reserve. And he uses the example of, in the traditional art market, you might have someone who is a creator, an artist, and they might have an agent, and the agent will essentially keep 10% of whatever it is that they create, and you keep it in, let's say, a warehouse or a storage unit. And then once the art appreciates in value in the future, you've then got this reserve of, let's say, 10% of everything that you made that then you can sell into bids in this appreciated market. And that's essentially one of the ways in which artists and devs can kind of end up paying themselves. So we've done that with Mibera. 10% of the supply actually is held by THJ. And it will be used either as protocol-owned liquidity or we'll kind of reserve it for the future. And that allows us to capture any, let's say in the future, the liquid backing of a Mibera is the same price as Milady. That's a way for us as an org to capture that value for the efforts and input that we're putting in. We've got skin in the game in that sense. We're also taking the mint funds, but we've created a lot. So if you feel that's egregious, sorry for your loss, don't buy in. It's no problem. So, oh wait, hang on, sorry. On secondary royalties in NFT, I think maybe it's not this article, it's, there's another one coming up. It's the one over on the left, secondary royalties. So a lot of what I just said, transpose it to this article, secondary royalties in NFT, inefficient, anti-market, and ethically suspect.
Yeah.
So
okay.
a lot of the comments I just made are actually applied at this article. All right. So those are some of the moving parts from the writing of Milady. Now let's get into the real heart of the actual technical invention, and that is the egregore, the universal jester spirit that found an opening through Romelia, through Charlie, through other folks who were there, unleashed onto the timeline immense chaos, immense desire, immense participation from the grassroots. And I'd say, like, when Jani speaks of finding resonance with the Milady culture, it's that raw, organic, chaotic, and anarchic energy, which Jani, I think, is the true Milady spirit. And that's the spirit that Mibera is also bringing to the table. Now, if you can do me a favor for a moment, actually, no, I'll take a moment to. So, of course, with that emergent spirit, you had a whole bunch of people who then started wanting to create around Milady. So there was, let's talk about the initial wave of that. So you had people kind of close to Remelia. They created the Milady 333 bitch teas. There was Super Metalax GAN Milady collection. So that was what is ostensibly attributed to be the first derivative. Then you had stuff like Filady Maker, Sonara Maker. These were people in the orbit and the cluster around Charlie Fang. There was a feuds, and there's been breakdown around that as like the collapse of the social ties and bonds between them. There's been court cases. There's been whatever. Super Milady. I guess if I really piss Charlie off, then Charlie, you can always send me a lawsuit for libel or whatever, because apparently that's Super Milady. Now here's the part of the interesting bit of the history. The first derivative collection that emerged from this social technology of emergent anarchic energy was Milady motherfuckers. Now, what did they innovate? They innovated, they were the first paid mint. They minted before Board Milady. So this was around 420. It was actually 422. So 22nd of April. They launched around the same time, but Milady motherfuckers started their mint first. And who is that artist? That artist is the artist who created or has been the instrument for Jani to express Mibera through, right? Has been locked in a cave for the last 2 years and kind of been sent to the depths of madness to draw on the dark matter and be a tool for Jani to kind of express, to communicate this kind of energy through. And so what Gumi Lady did that set off this whole wave of approach to derivative culture was that she sent a percentage of the mint funds without being asked, by the way. Like, no one suggested it. No one was even speaking about it at the time. This was Gumi's invention, where she sent a percentage of the revenue from her mint to Remelia as an acknowledgement of, hey, I'm creating with Milady as a muse. That then influenced Charlotte Fang to say, actually, what is an ethical derivative within Milady? And then you had these kind of conventions where you must send some percentage to us. You must reserve some percentage for NFTX. You must whitelist Miladies or give some percentage free to Miladies, right? But all of that was handled at the social layer. It was all policed. Actually, I'll show you a visualization. So if you go up to the previous tab, to the THJ mirror. Yeah, and if you go to let's say go to law 6 and scroll down a bit. Down a bit more. Bit more. Oh no, okay, sorry, back. Let's go to law 7. My bad.
7.
Yeah. Go down. Yeah, this picture. Can you make that bigger?
Yeah.
That one. Right. Over on the left, you have centralized. So this is Charlie Fang as overlord, centrally determines who gets what resources, is the small dictator like the central planner. This is how it this is how it starts. It's not the true story, because actually in reality there were other power forces around. There was other people who had the keys to code. There was whatever, but at least this is the way the story goes. Charlie Fang is king. So that's centralized, right? Then over on the right, in the center, in B, we've got decentralized. So the reason you have lots of mini Charlie Fang faces through here, and you've got the big one, is if Charlie Fang as king of the centralized Romelia state bestows upon you authority, like you get to be the cultural arbitrator of what is considered a proper Milady derivative. And if you are bestowed like a feudal like right as a let's say a duke of your particular zone, maybe you get to dominate a particular chain or whatever, and you become like a mini executor of what is culturally okay within that zone. You're essentially a little Charlie Fang until you're not. And so in this sense, it determines who's in the in-group and who's in the out-group. But it's all handled through shadow networks, whisper networks, background stuff behind the scenes. And you get this kind of clustered network. And so in this way, you have far more derivative collections being produced, but actually only a small number kind of get plugged into the network and determined as kind of like Romelia, inverted commas. And so then over on, and I have to say, this is policed at the social layer, right? And the convention layer. This is where on the timeline, Miladies used to, when they still were a bit vibrant, had much more, I'd say it was like, I'm not meaning this in a bad way, it just is, right? It's not my personal preference for ways of organizing. I see that other people do, right? People love a corporation or this type of thing. I know Charlie loves the corporate hierarchy model, as like has expressed that it's one of the most advanced organizational creations of humanity and whatever. It's not really Janny's view on these things. But it's important to note that this is all handled at the social layer. This is the snarky comment on the timeline, or it's the I do not support that project, and then that's the dog whistle for, okay, that's now the new rule amongst the status quo. If you want to be on the inside of this culture, then you've got to kind of follow through with that, or kind of decide to play both sides in some type of way. Over on the right is Mibera. There is no one face. And the reason this is this way, oh yeah, before I get there, how does the money work in these networks, right? So in and around Milady, Charlie gets the funds. He gets to withdraw them to a bank account through a company that he's sorted out. There was all a bunch of feuds around that stuff. In the Central B version, each of these collections that are launching, they're mini Charlotte Fangs. Every time they launch, like the people kind of absorb the funds, and you have like all of these kind of like mini replications of A, right? Over in C, which is a distributed network, is yes, you have Janny, let's say Janny in this instance, at the invocation or establishment of the network. I'm no different to Charlie Fang. There's no judgment there. We're taking all of the mint funds. Sorry for your loss. We're rugging you. We're terrible. All of that. However, with the technical innovation, and I'm going to bring this back to the previously mentioned things, is that each of these little faces in this network has what we call a UART, an ungovernable, autonomous rave treasury, or otherwise known as liquid backing. So in A and B, how money flows through the system is determined by individuals and their good grace. It's a feudal system. Over in C, we've got a mechanism where essentially collections can launch tributaries, or as they're called, derivatives. So this is, again, the primary technology of Milady, is that emergent chaotic spirit of people creating from that universal inspiration into networks of online connected, that where there's also communicational and visual and value exchange. It's kind of a magic new thing. But the economics was old school. The economics was no different to the feudal times where you're paying tribute to the duke who then pays a tithe to the king or the overlord, right? In the C version, any collection which launches through this platform, no one will be forced to. You can also just launch it on Magic Eden, Kingdomly, OpenSea, and whatever, call yourself Mibera. That's kind of cool. But there is a mechanism where you can launch it through the Silk Road site. So you launch it through the Honey Road site. A percentage of your mint fees goes and it gets distributed to every Mibera holder. And they get to determine what they do with those funds. Maybe they mint some of your stuff. Maybe they put on a rave. Maybe they group together. Maybe they book profit, and whatever. But I'm getting ahead of myself. But this gives you the picture of how they are different as networks. And I'd say that C is much more similar to the social architectures of the free party movement, much more similar to the chaotic emergent early internet approaches. And this is what like the Milady spirit expressed in a cybernetic cypherpunk expression looks like. But yeah, if you can go back to the Charlotte Fang's page and then go down to the bottom. So let's get into the technical aspects of it. So PFP NFTs, we've got that down. You can wear a Mibera as a PFP NFT, but it's not static. It's got this treasury inside it. So let's go back up. If you go back, sorry, the experiments that Charlie ran with Bonkler, instead of it being this standalone separate project, you can think of each Mibera being somewhat similar to the Noun style or the Bonkler model, where let me list out. So inside the Honey Road, the Silk Road site, you'll be able to see your Mibera, and there'll be a button that says backing, and you click it, and in that interface, you will see how much liquid backing that Mibera has. This is very similar to the Aptile model, by the way. People should go back and listen to that interview because this is just a different expression of the same underlying tech. And so you will see a button that says withdraw however much the liquid backing is. So to start with, there will be 10% of the Steady Teddy mint. So if they're minting for $88, there's 10,000 of them. You can multiply 88 by 10,000 and then divide that by 10. There'll be that amount divided by 10,000 to each Mibera to begin with, just as a tiny example. So once we launch liquid backing, you'll be able to take out that money and spend it on what you want or leave it in. When you take a loan, what is actually functionally happening is you are depositing the Mibera into the ungovernable autonomous rave treasury. So essentially, the treasury is escrowing your Mibera at that point, and in exchange, you receive the liquid backing. Now, there's a term, like there's a length of time within which you need to pay that back, or the treasury takes your Mibera away. Now, where do the income streams come from? We're going to be hooking this into, let's start. So we're going to be launching with ERC 721AC, which the on-chain heroes have just repopularized and a few other collections that enforces on-chain royalties. Steady Teddies are also doing this. So 4.2% of every trade of Mibera is going to be flowing into the UART system. We're also going to be running project-owned liquidity using something like pseudo swap. So that means any trade that gets routed through that network, all of the fees from that and profits go into, or percentage of the fees go into the UART. We'll be able to use those two components to incentivize BGT delegators or BGT boosters, and we'll be working with our validator. Our validator is thick as fuck. We've got 10 million bearer as of currently right now. That's 60 to 70 million US dollars worth of power in there, and we're one of the most delegated to or boosted in terms of BGT. We will hook a part of that. Will there be interest rate on the loan? I need to get back to you on that, Migs. I'm kind of into no interest, just a fee up front would be my preference. I think there's a lot that you can draw from Islamic finance. I think they've got it right more than a lot of other predatory stuff. I prefer a fee up front, and then you're good, and it's easier to model. Where was I? Yes, so we'll be able to use parts of the project owned liquidity and the trading fees from the 721AC. And if you look into the on-chain heroes, and if you look at the amount of money we're talking about here, it's not insubstantial. And if you reflect on the fact that more or less in terms of capital efficiency, in the early days of what's coming in Berachain, for every $1 you incentivize, you're getting between $4 and $7 worth of value driven back. And so that means that the validator will be directing BGT into the liquid backing. What that translates as if you want to cash that out, you can burn the BGT for bearer, and it's going to every block, because basically every time there's BGT distributions, you're going to be kind of getting them flow through to you. If I'm making a mistake here, I'm sorry. I'm brain's a bit mush from the COVID. This will all be covered in the docs. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is, for example, out of the hood, once everything mints out, we're going to have, I told you at the end of the last show, the Honey Road is going to be a replica of the Silk Road. You can go and have an experience with any vendor. You can buy any of those drugs. They will be differently priced. Some of them are open editions, some of them are rare. All of the finances from those sales, or a vast majority of them, 1% will be going to Ross Ulbricht, and a large percent of it will be going to the UR of each Mibera. Some of the tributaries that we're going to have out of the gate, as I mentioned, 10% of the Steady Teddies mint fee. We're also going to have the Shadow vending machine. The Shadow vending machine is actually build your own Mibera, and it will be maybe 4.2 US dollars. And you can essentially use the vending machine to assemble any combination of Mibera that you want to. If you hold a Mibera, you'll maybe be able to mint about 10 of them for free. And if you want to, you can use the assembly engine in there, the vending machine, to create your own Mibera, and you can right-click save it if you want. But if you want to take it out of the vending machine, you need to pay 4.20 honey, right? The sale from each of those, 1% goes to Ross Ulbricht. The majority of the rest goes into the liquid backing. We've also got a collab coming down the pipeline with Baby Bearer, a world first, where the percentage of the fees, same deal. I could go on and on and on, but essentially what we've built is an economic system, and the Miberas are at the heart of it, and they're essentially the decentralized and distributed governors of this thing, and all of the value flows through them, or a large percentage of it. And this is why Jani is really very confident in saying the liquid backing, or the UR treasury per Mibera, will at some point, not if, it's a question of when, will surpass the floor price of Milady, because on Berachain you're paid to be here. And not just that, we've incorporated all of the lessons learned from last cycle, and we've incorporated it into a holistic system that is tied together at the code layer. We are in no way going to try and police or enforce any conventions socially. Like, in that way, we're radically different than Milady. There is no central planning. There are cypherpunks who are writing code. Anyone is able to contribute to the code in an open source way. We're open source punks at the end of the day. So yes, I'm not saying there isn't like a core of true believers who are on a mission, but I'm talking in terms of people owning this culture and contributing to it. If you want to create a Hungarian Mibera kind of center, there is absolutely nothing stopping you. And you don't have to go with your hands like Oliver Twist or whatever to a central, a Charlotte Fang type character saying, please, sir, may I have some more? Or am I allowed to be one of the official ones, please? Or whatever. None of that. Inside each Mibera, you have a slice of the economic flow of the economy, right? You determine it. You don't have to ask permission. Fuck that. We don't want to be like the you can come and hit Janny if Janny ever comes and goes, that's not very Mibera. Like, whatever. That's not the game that we're playing. And so all of this has been built and designed over the last period in time. To be honest, we've been more or less ready to go for a year. We've been waiting on Berachain. I'm glad that we did wait, because the reemergence of this enforced royalties closes the loop. Because the thing that's been driving Janny kind of crazy over the last year is, how do we hook this into Pol? Because it wasn't exactly super clear how to do it really neatly, and that's kind of answered itself. The universe has provided, the way that Pol is designed is congruent. We run one of the most powerful validator syndicates through the Fat Bearer syndicate. So we have all of the moving parts, and the final piece was hooking in the incentive model to the vibrancy and the growth of the kind of Mibera economy, in a sense. So I'm going to pause there. I think I've covered the main points, but we've never seen something like this in crypto before. It may be the case that we need to put some legal wrappers around this. That would look like essentially a Panama members club that advises a Caymans or BVI style foundation. And you would essentially have the DAO be essentially a dumb wrapper that gets advice from a Panama members club, and maybe to access the staking facility within Mibera if we wanted to build under Biden. But given we're building under Trump, we're happy to just ship because it's crime season, all good. By the time people figure out what the fuck is going on with Mibera, we should have time to do some tidy up. But like, we're good at this shit. Like, I've been playing this game full time since 2011. Like, we can set up whatever structures or entities needed for like less than 100K and 2 weeks. Like, this shit is child's play to us. Like, we've done this so many times in ways where we're not the lowest hanging fruit, but we're really advancing the reason Janny is very happy to go onto the timeline and call out Charlie's bullshit, because he is someone with a lot of cultural power and sway, is I don't give a fuck, right? You guys are fine over there and do your thing. I happen to think that miladies operate best when there is tension, when there is that dynamic interplay, when there is an other for them to push back against. I think actually this is that machine that shocks the heart once it's gone out type of thing. But what this I'm okay if people don't get it and they just see Janny as some kind of asshole trying to dick ride Charlie through like outrage and whatever. There is an aspect of that going on because it's fun, but also, to be honest, like, no gods, no masters. I don't like any form of centralization. It's not a thing against Milady at all. I love that spirit, but the centralization around Remelia Core, fuck you. If there's a firewall between us for a while, that's good, because it means we're bringing in net new people into this way of being. And hopefully at some point in the future, they can appreciate the spirit with which we're bringing to the table. And maybe in the future, there'll be some synergies between us. But if in the meantime, there's resistance, well, that's fine. Light bulbs and electricity depends on resistance, right? And arms and this type of thing. It's not a bad thing. Sparks are the intersecting, rubbing up of people of difference. Like, it would be super fucking boring and very, let's say, conventional if you didn't disagree with anyone, because then that means there's some element of suppression of free expression going on. Like, friction, sparks, fire are all the symbol, energetic and kind of spiritual and psychological thing of the edge of our differences. And fundamentally, distributed and decentralized networks thrive on different agents, different actors, coordinating across difference, right? That's To end this spiel, I want to give one of my favorite quotes. Hang on, let me just look it up. I know it, but let me just say it, and then as the computer's loading up, I'll say it properly. So 17 years before receiving the first ever Bitcoin transaction, Hal Finney essentially said, computers and the internet are tools that can be used to liberate people instead of suppress them. And that's the game that we're playing. Like any game that's trying to suppress you into action or behavior of a certain way, Janny will always be at war with that. But any energy or expression that's out there about expanding the space of possibility and freedom, Janny is here for that. And I know that spirit lives in Milady. I don't believe it lives in Remilia. Like Remilia can get in the bin as far as Janny's concerned. But like I believe that that energetic form, like a yin and yang, is important. Let me see if I got that quote right, because I think it's important to pay tribute to the giants upon whose. So in 1992, in November, which was over 17 years before receiving the first ever Bitcoin transaction from Satoshi Nakamoto, Hal Finney wrote to a mailing list of other cryptography enthusiasts, the computer can be used as a tool to liberate and protect people rather than to control them. And that's the spirit with which we're building this thing, and we hope you join us.
Nice. There was a lot of information. We got some questions here, some critical ones, some interesting one. My question was, what is the benefit to buy drugs?
None. Buying drugs is fun.
Okay.
So but you know, like with Ponzu, like what the number of, let's put it this way, right? When some early writers and journalists and people who were around the early days of Silk Road, right, have learned about what I'm doing and what we're doing, right? And what you have to remember is a lot of those early crypto pioneers, they almost unanimously think NFTs are a scam. They still think of like all of the rug pulls. They think of Bored Apes. That's what they think of. So after really long discussions with them, we're going to be collaborating together. More information forthcoming. And part of what's attracted them is they see the vision of a living archive of this thing. What you have to remember is there was between 100,000 and 250,000 weekly active users of Silk Road, right? They're all out there somewhere. They were all the earliest crypto pioneers. And I think that the system that we've created, I haven't even got into that side of stuff, but we're creating essentially an incentivization model where we will pay people to restore vendors' information. We will pay people to dig through their archives and restore parts of the forum. All of that will be paid. And basically, if someone restores a vendor, and it won't be permissionless, we're going to work with the mods, the journalists, from the original Silk Road. They're going to be paid to do this. Wow. And they will be the judges of, yes, this is a true and accurate representation of that vendor profile from what we have on file at the time. And the people who help with that restoration process will get paid in perpetuity for all drugs sold through that vendor. And of course, Ross Ulbricht gets 1% of everything that flows through this platform in perpetuity. I need to reach out to his mum to make sure that the Ethereum address that he has listed on the Free Ross page is externally owned address rather than a centralized exchange address. But assuming it is a EOA, then it will be compatible with Berachain. And so if we can't find that address, then what I'll do is I'll set up a multi-sig in the meantime, and we'll flow all of those funds through to the multi-sig until such a point as Ross or family reach out. And then we'll swap out their keys onto the multi-sig and remove ourselves. But the point, to answer your question, why would people buy drugs? Why are people spending 500,000 to $1 million dollars per day on Telegram to buy stickers right now. Why are people buying
That's true.
Pokemon? Why are people buying Pokemon cards? Why did people buy $500,000 worth of like cheap mints from THJ during the bear market?
No, I just thought maybe Miberas can get high, and then you mentioned something with AI agents in the
The
last
vendors,
podcast.
the vendors are they're sentient. You can talk to them. They're AI agents. They
Nice.
might rob you. You might pay for drugs, and they might tell you they've sent it, and it might never arrive. Or you might receive a love letter from the border. Like you might order one thing, but it doesn't get through. But sorry for your loss. A lot of us have been there. If you want to speak to them, you're going to have to learn how to use GPG, though. That's one of the major technological advances in agency that the Silk Road really taught, is it taught a whole generation of people how to use GPG.
Cool stuff. So I love you how you built up, and the detail, uh, there's so much lore in it. There's so much history, as you said. I love that I can share it. Here is the Honey Road. It's a wallet checker for now, but here will be the copy of the Silk Road. Love that. It's amazing how much work you put in there. So
I had this
congrats.
idea, by the way, I had this idea over a year ago. I think we had a bit of an argument inside Mibera. People wanted to do it a different way. And then I was like, do you know what? The best thing to do would actually just be to recreate the Silk Road. And then we made this a year ago. We've just been waiting. And in that time, of course, Ross has now been pardoned. Just over a month ago when Trump came into power. So really, truly, it just feels yet again like the Jester universe has kind of been guiding the light on this. And of course, in that process, we've kind of met early pioneers from the Silk Road who've now, you know, the thing that they care about most is their reputation. And so for them to be willing to work with us really says a lot.
Hey, it's cool. So, is there anything else you want to touch on?
There's a lot, you know, like this is just the tip of the iceberg. Like this is the initial, once we roll this out, that's like the first Lego brick. And then when you see, remember, you know, this is a year old. We haven't been sat on our paws for the last year. There's a whole other bunch of stuff I've not even hinted at, which is coming down the pipeline as well, which once you've got an engine, once you've got the engine in the rocket ship, then you just play with different fuel sources and the pipelines and kind of everything around it. But essentially, everything that THJ is touching, like, bear in mind, we run one of the most powerful validators in the network, a series of them, 4, and it's growing. Like we've got the capability and capacity to expand that. We've got everything that is THJ, AppDAO, we've got Henlo. Once you start to see how all these systems, once you've got a bundle of different engines, once you start linking them together and the flywheels that you can create, I'll give you another leak. So Charlie, we're coming for you. I'm relentless. So in times of war, the people who benefit the most are the arms dealers. So we're working with Shogun we've of course just released hen lockers. So we are working with Shogun to do one-click zap into hen lockers. And so we're coming for your liquidity with Cult. We won't stop until there's nothing left to take. And we'll incentivize people to dump their Cult into hen lockers, right? And we will pay you to do it. And then that will feed into some Mibera chaos as well as incentivizing dumping your miladies into Mibera, and then buying the Mibera, depositing it, and then using the loan back from it to maybe buy back into Milady if you want. But really, what we're in the game of is once you taste the honey, once you're in the land of milk and honey, once you're in El Dorado, you can't unsee it. you can't unsee the fact that, hey, that was really easy to bridge across, right? I didn't need a different wallet. It just worked. Actually, this thing works kind of quickly. It's kind of quick. Oh, cool. I can buy into this collection that seems on the up rather than being stuck in this collection that's kind of been struggling for a bit. Once people get a taste, it's hard to unsee. And so really what all of this is we're in the game of is creating portals and pathways into Berachain. The volumes and the secondary and the activity fucking sucks at the moment. It's not a question of things to do. Now we need to onboard new people, and I don't know a better team than us at doing that. We did it in a massive way with Henlo. The problem is not onboarding. The problem is once you have got people, converting them and then retaining them. And we're really expert. We understand what game we're playing. 80% of the people who touched Henlo, who were from NFTs, they did their first DeFi without even necessarily knowing it. These things which feel hard, we make them easy. We help people over the threshold without even realizing that's what's happening to them. And so that's the game that we're playing now. Really, once you've got a home base and a fortress, then it's just then it becomes the real game. Like we're playing. This is the computer game that Kobe was talking about, and I wrote about. If you want to see the way Jani thinks, I've been planning this since early 2022, 2023. I wrote about it in January of 2023. If you want to see Jani's thinking, go back to the Cults article and the Dawn of the Honey Jar and Berachain, and really read it and have a think about it, because that's what we're doing. Like a lot of people, when they go on the internet, they form communities in games that have in-game economies that have maybe some link to, let's say, bank economies. But to Jani, really, all of crypto is just a game. This is much more similar to a game than it is to anything else. And really, if you want to be on the winning side, like having a home base and a cult leader, Janopticon style figure, who is maybe some type of Genghis Khan style agent who understands the actual game at play and has been building out the tools and infrastructure, to be honest, for war on chain. That's what's coming. We'll be friendly about it for a while until we're not. I think I don't mind rubbing Ramelia up the wrong way because I think they deserve it. And I think that it will actually be good for them as well to get back on their toes and to kind of get back into the arena. I think like when you do big raises and get a lot of funds into your account, it can make you fat and lazy. And you can choose to stay there if you want, or you can get back in the arena. Because if you don't come back in the arena, we'll come for everything that you have in the charts. Like that's just how it is.
Wow, so much information, so much alpha, so well thought out. One thing I want to ask is this liquid backing. So this works most likely with the BGT, and how is the process there? So will there be a validator where you can delegate your BGT to, or will there be a pool?
Yeah, so we'd be handling this through an aspect of the THJ validator set. So you can if you we've got massive amounts of let's say investment from different mega whales. I think that's demonstrated by the fact that within the first week of Berachain launching, we had something like 60 million plus in Bera staked with us already. So I think these aren't just words. I think it's demonstrably you can see that we've got the firepower both at the grassroots but also at the institutional kind of mega whale level. And so people would delegate or boost their BGT to the THJ validator, and then we'll handle like routing the BGT through to or other BGT through to the Mibera set. We'll figure out the exact details. Of course, we need to get through governance, but the thing is, once we're in this early nascent part of the network, and whilst a lot of the the decision making is currently gated, whether it's gated or whether it's done with on-chain governance, we're fine in both ways. I think we've established ourselves within Berachain and built up, even though Jani's anonymous, we've got kind of trust across the board through demonstrated and consistent delivery. People might not agree with or like our strategies, but certainly no one could argue with the fact that we show up every day and we ship. And broadly speaking, I don't think anyone could question that we're deeply Bera aligned.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, Jenny, everything else you want to touch on?
Have fun. Like, I know I'm a bit serious about this stuff. We went really deep down to the Mariana Trench. But really, like, I'll give you a small anecdote. Putting on these free parties in and around the UK feels, and certainly once you got into the cities and inner city life, anytime you have, let's say, ungoverned, unstructured, anarchic zones, it also attracts, let's say, the undercurrent and underbelly from other segments of society. And so when we had issue, we would never call the cops because that wasn't an option. When people, honestly speaking, came through to try and rob people or extort people who were raving, we would personally sort them out, right? We would use violence by any means necessary, right? But the purpose of it was to create a safe container within which the rave could happen, right? Within which people could be free and feel free, because so much of society at large, the violence is a lot less in your face. Like, the violence is structural. So it's the grind, it's the struggling to pay your rent, it's the worrying about paycheck to paycheck, it's the feeling like there's no hope, it's the collapse of a sense of future, right? That's a violence in its own form. And so when raiders would come to the party, whether it was whatever, if we couldn't first have a conversation with them and convert them into the importance of those types of spaces, we would fuck them up. And so when you see Jani being staunch on the timeline, it's not to be a terrorist, but it's with the understanding that what we have is worth preserving and protecting. Because once you're on the inside and once you get it, the sense of freedom, the sense of agency can allow you to wake up and really like connect and tap into a deeper sense of meaning and action. And it's Jenny's deep held belief that in this zone, time in a woken up state is far superior to time asleep, right? And I do believe that translates across to the appreciation, not just of culture, but of your wallets. And so that's, if you see Jenny on the war path on the timeline, I'm not just being a terrorist for terrorism's sake. Like, it's establishing a container within which we can do the actual work of having fun online again, feeling a sense of purpose, healing from feelings of burnout and kind of whatever that is really widespread, not just in crypto, but in society. And that's worth protecting. The last thing that I'll say is once the mint phases go live, I'm going to take a break from when whitelist style. I will say that the last 2-3 years has personally cost Jani a lot, energetically speaking. Like, I draw from a really deep well that's intergenerational, ancestral, let's say, but also in my own life, as deep as the Mariana Trench. And people ask me, where does the ideas for this stuff come from? It's drawn from dark matter. It's drawn from the pain, the suffering, the anguish. It's drawn from secrecy. It's drawn from intimacy disorders and kind of strange attachment forms. It's drawn from that dark matter shadow side just as much as the light side. It needs the yin and the yang. And I will communicate to you, not you in this room, but folks, fuck me, Jesus Christ. There's a lot of hungry ghosts on the timeline. Yeah. There is a lot of people who needs spiritual healing, right? And I've been very patient with you, right? For the most part, each interaction, I'm open to the possibility and the potential that there's a person I can connect with on the other end. But that gentleness alongside the hardness costs a lot, to be honest with you. It's, for example, after months and months and months of, it's kind of like a vampire, an energetic vamp, like take, self-centeredness, just think about myself, me. No thought of the person on the other side in a large percentage of the cases. Now, to sustain that for 8 to 12 hours a day consistently for months and months and months on end, right, without breaks, and then to receive a message from someone like you and not to be immediately with your guard up, immediately defensive, and to actually, someone's like, hey, can we talk on an interview, to maintain a spirit of gentleness and openness and say, hey, yeah, let's do it, has cost Janny a lot, I'll be honest with you. And so after the pre-mint and stuff, I'll probably take a break from the inbox just to restore and recoup some energy. I just want to say that up front. However, I am going to put a strange request out on the timeline. And that is, if you want to contribute to refilling Janny's dark matter vault with whatever that might be, tales of your own weird attachment expressions, your own considerations and engagement with your own attachment disorders, whether it's like your pictures of your cat or your dog, or stories of your favorite rave, or a time that you took drugs and it went wrong, or a time that you took drugs and it went right, or a funny story about you and your friends. I'm here for that. Whether it's like tasteful nudes, whether it's homemade, softcore, hardcore, whatever it is that's drawing from that shadow side of expressive, energetic energy, whether it's secrets about your workplace or secrets you've never told someone. Whatever the dark matter is, come and feed Janny. I'm here for that. But I'm not going to do any more Gib whitelist, when whitelist or stuff for a bit. I'll come back to that. But if it's that type of energy where it's taking something from me, I won't engage, just heads up. But if you want to contribute to the dark matter engine at the heart of Mibera, my inbox will always be open to you.
Well said, Jenny. I think we all understand that. If you what you've been making through, just today we had this case where something was yelling also on my timeline. Hey, check DM because I'm not on that list. I should be on that list, and why not? And blah blah blah. And yeah, you have to, as a founder, you have to be. You should know when to answer them and when not, and because the most important thing is to look for yourself. You can't be eaten up by these guys. And
100%. And it goes back to the question where you're like, how to bring in normies to NFTs. And my response is, sort yourself first. Like the airplane, put your own air mask on first, because fundamentally, if you're...
Now you rugged. Can't hear you. So maybe your internet connection, or maybe your battery. We can't hear you now. So I don't know if he's coming back. Okay. Jenny seems rugged. But yeah, guys, yeah, he left. He rugged us. Maybe he's coming back. I will check my DMs. Let's talk about the TLDR. Yeah, of course. So let's start again from the beginning. Steady swatted Jenny. Yes. Please DM all the Steady Teddy's account. Raid them. Chaos is manifested. They what does Len with? He's not coming back. Maybe he talked too much and his phone went off. I don't know. We'll wait a half a minute, and if he doesn't come back, then we will end it here. So I don't know how you guys feel. I feel energetic. I feel a lot of things what Jenny just said. I feel very much touched. So I resonate with them, with not with the raving part, because I'm not that guy who goes to raves, but I feel him emotional. Uh, I I wasn't abused or something like that, but I didn't have a difficult childhood, but it was emotionally also not that good. And I feel a lot of stuff what Jenny is talking about. So yeah, that part resonates with me. And the part that he wants to build something and he wants to attach people, I love that. And how much effort and how much energy he's putting in, that's, I think it's exceptional. So we should appreciate that, and I'm here for it. I want to support him, and I love that. So he's not coming back, so I will end it here. Jenny is truly a genius rebel. Yes. Create and unite. Fuck yeah. Yeah, that's what the vibes here were incredibly special. We shared the moment. Yeah, for the first time, I'm not joking. For the first time, I felt so special that we are here, everyone sharing the same feeling. So it was very, very special. Am I going to stream on the mint day? Um, it will be 24 hours, so I don't think it makes a lot of sense, but I will talk to Jenny. Maybe we can do something together. Yeah, he's not coming back. Okay. So guys, I will end this space here. Thank you for coming. And we will thank also Jenny if he's coming back. I hope that everything's okay. Now he's writing. Phone crashed. Yeah. I will ask him if he wants to come back. Charlie had enough. Charlie rugged us. Someone put on your Jenny mask and get on the air mix. Enigmatic ending. So, okay. You won't come back, guys. I thank you for being here and sharing this special moment with us. And yeah, that was so much fun. That was energetic, and I'm 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 hyped up, so I can't wait for the mint. Can't wait for the reveal process. I think you guys feeling the same. So yeah, we will be in touch with Jenny. We will continue this series. And yeah, hope you guys are doing well. We wish Jenny all the best. Rebellia censorship in action, he says. Okay, guys, have a nice one. Thank you for being here. Goodbye.